Well, it's futile to compare apples and oranges, but the growth story of countries like China brings a crucial element into this discussion. Countries like China and Israel, for instance, became independent at around the same time as India. But their economies have grown by leaps and bounds. If you take Singapore into consideration, the story becomes even more complex because Singapore became an independent republic nearly 20 years after India, but the economic growth in Singapore is formidable. By every yardstick, these countries have grown rapidly in terms of economy. It's as if these countries took an elevator to high growth while India took the stairs. Excuses like size and democracy really do not stand. China is more populated than India, at least as of now. To say that communist dictatorship is the reason for China's rapid economic growth is to miss the point altogether. In fact, such an argument exposes the fault lines in India's policy making. It is not India's democracy that crippled economic growth, but its policy making. For 4 decades, the Indian economy grew at a modest rate because of the commitment to welfare state and socialism, which is ironical. Economic growth lifts people from poverty. A compromise on growth to favor an ideology is a mistake that we have been paying for since independence. The fact that communist China liberalized its economy before India puts New Delhi's adamant ideological approach to shade. Still, if the argument is that China is a dictatorship and so decision-making was easier than India, then what explains Israel's rapid growth and the corresponding lack of it in India until recently? Israel is crippled by internal conflicts. It's a democracy, a thriving one. Like India, Israel got independence from the British after the end of the Second World War. Israel suffered a partition and territorial crisis continues to this day in that country, and still, Israel leads the world in entrepreneurship, technology, the startup culture, innovation. This is because Israel adopted an economic plan and stuck to it. Continuity in policy making and commitment to innovation are crucial factors. Israel is a shining example of that. Singapore's story is similar. After the Second World War, the country came under Britain. The next 2 decades were not easy. Malaysia and Singapore were locked in a serious dispute. And yet, Singapore focused on manufacturing and ushered in a highly efficient free market economy after its independence in 1965. The results are there for the world to see. According to World Competitiveness Rankings, Singapore tops every other country in terms of economic competitiveness. India is ranked at number 43 in that same list. The contrast tells the story. As China celebrates its 70th National Day, India must reflect on this. There needs to be a clear roadmap, and then the government must stick to it. For years, the Indian economy has been crippled by lack of skilled labor and centralization of decision-making. Until the labor force is skilled enough, India will struggle to reach its potential. The government has to prioritize India's education sector to achieve this. The industry needs to play a bigger role in skilling the workforce, and the government has to ensure this. This is a must for sustainable growth. If a communist state can bring in economic autonomy to its provinces, then a democracy like India can surely do better. And disputes need to be solved without compromises. Short-sighted political decisions will only come back to haunt the economy in the long run. There are serious lessons to be learned from countries like China, Singapore, and Israel, and there is no better time to learn from them than now.